How you going? My name's James, and I just wanted to basically share my story to give a bit of a different perspective on domestic violence, and I suppose probably the reception to the documentary The Red Pill by Cassie J. Um, I suppose a lot of people would be aware by now that the interview she'd done here was just an absolute disgrace. Andrew O'Keefe should be taken off the air. I think Waleed Ali and that lot on the project just need to be shut down. They are just fake news. It's just pathetic. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. Probably the thing that stuck with me the most was the attitude of Andrew O'Keefe. Mainly because the dude has no idea what he's talking about. He literally knows fuck all. He didn't even watch the documentary. You know, that's a fact. And he had the arrogance. This is what I couldn't believe. I watched this in another video and he mentioned this. He goes, think of the arrogance that Andrew O'Keefe had, right, to try and pick apart a movie that he'd never seen and this lady had worked on for like 2 or 3 years. Now, I do a bit of video editing myself, and I can tell you straight up, I know just about every frame that goes out. So if for someone to try and pick apart what I'm doing and tell me what I forgot, well, it's like, hang on, mate, I know better than you. Anyway, with that being said, and pardon me for being a bit sick, my experience is something that I think people have to hear about. I'll just get straight into it. Back in 2013, I was attacked by my ex-partner with a tomahawk. Police were called. I called police. I was injured. There were holes indoors. She smashed off a doorknob when I locked myself in the laundry to get away from her. When the police came, I was ridiculed. A female officer kept asking me, "Oh, is this axe the size of a pen? Is it a toy?" And excuse me, I did say to her that I'll cut that. So with the axe, I said to the officer that, yeah, it's a 2 kilogram head, it's a tomahawk. She swung it at me. She had come at me earlier on without the tomahawk, punching, kicking, scratching. I had marks and I was bleeding at the time when police came. So after I was being ridiculed by this female officer about the size of this axe, I was very adamant. I just kept saying to her that, you know, I can't believe that you're just making light of this situation. This is an absolute joke. And what I found interesting was that when I actually questioned her about her job, all of a sudden, she had to be professional. So they found the axe, and guess what happened? I got sent off. They told me I had to leave. So I got in my car and I left. Not one officer asked one press charges. They just told me to leave. So I left. I came back the next day after speaking to my ex-partner that night. And we talked about it. And I mean, it's wrong. There's no way of getting around it. It's wrong. So that was the first instance. Also in that instance, she claimed to police that I beat her and did a whole heap of horrible stuff, which the attending officers, you know, they seen who was messed up, who was bleeding, who was bruised, and who was not. And that was me. So the police did nothing. And the next day when I went home, a officer and a detective showed up. They come to the door and they asked to speak to Nilna, or asked to speak to my ex-partner. They took her outside. I could hear what they were saying. And they were asking her whether she wanted to press charges, and they told her about domestic violence and how it's a problem and blah, blah, blah. My ex-partner, because she was oh so apologetic for flipping out, straight away said, "No, I'm the aggressive one. I did it. I attacked him. He didn't touch me," which is the truth. So, needless to say, those officers were quite stunned. They left. All right, my ex-partner, you know, I don't want to get into it too much, but she does have some stability problems. Even before I met her, she's done cognitive behavioural therapy. She's tried to commit suicide. Every boyfriend she's had before has apparently beaten her. She's been raped by multiple people, you know, just horrible stuff. And when you hear that for the first time as a guy, the first thing you do is you think, oh my God, I want to protect you, you know, I can't believe it. But when you become, let's say, the perpetrator or whatever it is, it's a bit, you know, it started making me ask questions, but at the same time, I started to think, man, how messed up is this girl, you know, like maybe what she's doing to me is a reflection of what all these other assholes have done to her. That's what I thought. So as time went on, and I apologise about being sick again, as time went on, I suppose we had a child, a lovely baby girl. 3 months after she was born, my partner was suffering from postnatal depression. She was very adamant that she wanted to be a prostitute because she was a prostitute before I met her. I didn't actually know at the time, but she informed me that it was a woman's choice, it's the oldest profession in the book, and that's what she must do. I refused to be in a relationship with her, and I didn't want to continue on. Fair enough. That resulted in an argument in which I was physically attacked again. She set a fire in the lounge room. Oh, no, in the kitchen, sorry. She set a fire on the floor in the kitchen, burning up whatever she could find. Smashed plates, dishes, you name it. I called the cops out again. Just, you know, someone help her. Something's going on. Yeah, nothing. I had to leave again. Okay, so fair enough. I speak to her again that night. She tells me about, you know, what's happened to her, and sometimes she just acts the way she does, and, you know, I just went with it. But by this time, my family and my friends are telling me to, you know, I've got to get away. I didn't listen. It's probably the biggest regret I ever have, is like I lost a lot of friends and close family members because of this. So again, a few months later, I do something she doesn't like. I still didn't want to be a part of her being a hooker. I'm sorry, but it sickens me, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be a part of it. So basically what happened was she flipped out again when I said, look, I don't want to be in a relationship with you if this is what you're going to do. It's my choice if I want to be in a relationship, you know. We can still be friends, but I'm not going to be in a relationship with you. That's when she informed me I had to be in a relationship with her, and if I didn't, I was going to pay. And guess what? I paid. Later that day, her sister come around, and they were at the back of my house, and I could hear them talking about intervention orders. I had no idea what they were. Later that night, it was something pathetic. It was the most pathetic argument you could ever imagine, but I could tell that she was fishing for an argument, but I didn't realise that it was like a fire starter, I suppose. So, yeah, she went fishing for the argument. It was something stupid like, something like I had an ex-girlfriend from when I was like 15 on Facebook. I'm 30, you know, so whatever. And I've known this individual since I was like 3 years old, so sorry, I'm not getting rid of a lifelong friend for that. So that's what started the argument. She grabbed my daughter and walked out. Okay. I tried calling her, no answer. The next day, I had a knock on the door. Police. Now, to anyone that knows, this is the beginning of the end. I was handed or served an intervention order. If anyone knows what an intervention order is, it's pretty much death. So I was handed the intervention order. I received a phone call, so I was advised not to call her, don't contact her, all that stuff. But I was naive and stupid. She contacted me. I never actually contacted her. She contacted me, and she explained to me again why she did what she did. because of the abuse she suffered, because of this, because of that. And then because I didn't want to be with her in a relationship, her sister had come around and told her the only way she can get free housing is if she claims that I beat her, she gets an intervention order, and she gets DV services help. That's what started it. To give a bit of an idea, and just to show you how messed up all this is, that same partner of mine then said to me, as a mark of trust, I'm going to bring our daughter around, you can look after her, while she went out whoring. Who am I to say no to look after my daughter? You know, so I did. She dropped her off. She went off, done her thing, whatever. I didn't really care at that point. She done that a few times, and then something must have happened. She must have realised that these great people weren't so great. I don't know what it was, but it would have been, I'd say, yeah, probably the third time she dropped her off. She stood at my door and said I had to be with her. It was unfair that I left her. She said it was unfair that I left her with a mirror, even though she, you know, took off with my daughter. So there's again an argument ensued. An argument of me saying I didn't want to be in a relationship with you. I'm sorry, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. It pretty much escalated to a point where, again, I had to call police. Again, she come at me with a knife this time. I had visible scratches all over my face. I had, we call it the Wolverine scratch. I had this scratch across my back. You wouldn't believe it. Like, it was unreal. Absolutely unreal. So she's come, she's flipped out. I'm like, look, I don't know, I'm sorry, go, please, just go. And she wouldn't. She barged her way in. She ran into, because my daughter was napping at the time. She ran in and grabbed my daughter, locked herself in the room, and started crying and screaming and just, it was mental. I didn't know what to do. So when I called the police, I told the police, I said, look, there's an intervention order out. She's come to my house. Oh. She put an intervention order against me. She's come to my house. Bring ambulance and police, because she did. She tried to, she took like 20 Nurofen or something to try and kill herself. So the police and the ambulance come, okay? This is another one where it gets interesting. So the police and ambulance come, but just before they came, my ex-partner had parked in the driveway. So I actually went and got my car and then parked it behind her car so she couldn't leave, because she was just losing the plot. Like, she needed someone to, you know, help her, like professional help. It was crazy. The police got there and they seen the state she was in. So their initial, I suppose, course of action was, you know, they got her out of the car, they got my daughter out of the car. She smashed into my car trying to get out, hit it with my daughter in the car, smash, smash, smash. And the police actually witnessed that. And that's the amazing thing. So when they came, they took her out of the car, and there's an ambulance there. As I told them, she tried to commit suicide. She told the police that she'd taken 20 Nurofen tablets, or there was something to that description. The police then, basically, they just asked me, what happened? I said, mate, she's flipped out, she's come here, she's done this, she's done that, look, whatever, I just want to look after my daughter. And at that moment, I said to her when she was getting in the ambulance, just go get better. Just go get better, that's it. So then the police, one of the officers got into the ambulance, the other officer got in his car and just drove off. It's just me and my daughter. 5 minutes after all this has happened, it's me and my daughter. This is probably the worst part, is they took my ex-partner for a psychological evaluation. She checked herself out at 9 p.m. I think it was at about 10 o'clock at night. She went to the Holden Hill police station and said that I had hit her, forced sex upon her, hit my daughter, yeah, I can't even name it all. It was just ridiculous. Said I had access to guns, and it's ridiculous. So the police at 3 a.m. knocked on my door. There were 6 officers. One of them, I think one of them was female. So the officers had told me that I had to go down and answer some questions at the station. I was like, oh yeah, well, what about my daughter? And this is where the police messed up. And this is where I do want justice. I want them to pay a bit, but I've been told that I'm overreacting. So what ended up happening was the police told me, they said, just come down and answer some questions. We forgot the baby seat for the car, so one of these officers is going to stay here with your daughter. Can you just go get her nappies and just, get her bottles and stuff ready so that, this officer can look after her. You'll be back in an hour. That's what they told me. I got escorted to the police car. I got taken to Holden Hill Police Station. On the way to Holden Hill Police Station, I was pretty much, I wouldn't say verbally assaulted, but I was just treated like a criminal. I kept getting told that's what you get for hitting your wife. Well, for one, she's not my wife, and 2, I never hit her. You guys are stupid. So in the interrogation room, I showed them my injuries. I showed them what happened to my back, which didn't matter. She didn't have a single mark. Single mark. The only thing she said in her affidavit was that because she has a brown complexion, you couldn't see any bruising. Oh, wow. That is just fucking ridiculous. So here you got one guy who's bleeding. I'm all busted up. I've got scars all over my forearms from this individual over the years. And, yeah, the fact I'm physically injured. But, yeah, all right. So I'm in the interrogation room, and that female officer, because I left her my keys. Now, I only had one set of keys. It was my car and my house keys on the same key ring. This officer, shouldn't even call her that, just asshole, simply put, walked past the interrogation room smiling at me, flicking my keys around her index finger. I can remember it was her right hand. I'll never forget it. I knew straight away. I knew my daughter was gone. Gone. Because at 3 a.m, if they didn't have her, if my mum didn't have her, who else had her? So after the interrogation, where I answered all their questions, and I just said, look, she attacked me, I called you, there's not a mark on her, I'm the one messed up, I'm the one that needs medical attention. Nah, didn't matter. Didn't matter. I was then processed. I was taken to Port Adelaide lockup. Okay? Not pleasant at all. To be locked up against your will when you have done absolutely nothing wrong, to be under the presumption you're guilty till proven innocent, is a hard pill to swallow. I think, that sort of circumstance is probably responsible for the high rate of suicide amongst men under 30 in this country. I'd love to see the correlation between those two things, because I'm going to say, I'll bet you, they're pretty high. I'd love to see the stats on that, because you just couldn't argue. So I got taken to Port Adelaide watch house, right? I was there, which, there are other people there, people go through this, I get that. But what actually blew my mind was that when I first got there, I got treated like a dog, simply put. I remember it was about 4 a.m. Saturday morning, I got actually processed. The first time I was allowed out was, I think, at about lunchtime. Allowed outside to, I had some cigarettes, go have a cigarette, and just walk around really. And then after that, basically, I mean, the first few hours that you're in a cell, it's actually a little bit exciting in the sense of like it's a whole new environment. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what's going on. I don't mean exciting good. I just mean it provokes your senses. It's not something that you experience every day. So after those few hours had finished, so the next day, I was asking to go out into the little yard bit because I could hear, because of where the cells were, I could hear the officers escorting all the junkies backwards and forwards. So the junkies could go out there, have a cigarette, do whatever. There was a guy there that got caught growing 50 marijuana plants, mate. And this bloke was allowed in and out. And every time I got on the intercom, I was like, "Oh, can I go out, please?" They turned around and said to me, "Oh, we're busy. We're busy." So what eventually seemed like an eternity, I started basically losing my shit. I started punching the door. I started kicking the door. I even started headbutting it at one point. Not pretty. Go have yourself locked up falsely and see how you react. And what made it worse was that when I was going through this, I wasn't allowed out. One of the officers over the intercom, he said to me, "This is what you get for beating your wife, mate." And I said to him, "You have no fucking idea what you're talking about. And when I'm finished here and I get proven innocent, I'm going to do everything I can to try and get you done, mate. You just fucked up." That's what I said to him. And it was kind of funny because he threatened to have a whole bunch of cops come in and basically beat the fuck out of me. And after that, he didn't say fuck all. Interesting, isn't it? It was 15 hours. I wasn't allowed outside because I'm a woman basher. So on the Monday, I'd spoken to a duty lawyer, told her what had happened. It was a female, I might add. I went to court on the Monday. A male prosecutor stood up. Oh, sorry about my nose here. So a male prosecutor stood up and said he wants to prosecute me to the fullest extent of the law, which basically meant 2 years in jail. Yep. So this wanker, absolute fucking wanker, who had no fucking idea about what he was talking about or what had happened, straight away wanted to prosecute me and put me in jail for 2 years. For nothing. That's the part. That's the part no one understands about the court system. Let alone the fact I got locked up unjustly. Let alone the fact that I was treated like shit while I was in there. Well, let's not even mention the fact that every police officer that was a female that I dealt with during that time was an absolute arsehole. Because their preconceived notion was that I'm a woman basher. Well, that prosecutor, as I said, stood up, wanted to prosecute me to the fullest extent of the law. They were his words. My duty manager stood up, and all she said, I couldn't believe it. She goes, "But Mr. Davey hasn't done anything wrong." That's literally all she said, and sat back down. I was like, hang on. And then the prosecutor and my lawyer, or this duty lawyer, didn't then say anything, and the judge was just looking between them, and I was like, "Oh, don't fucking tell me that's it." And so I stood up, and I just pleaded my case. I said, "Look, mate, I've never been in trouble. I've never committed a crime, never committed a violent crime. You can look up her record. She's been found as she's a registered hooker. She has been found to be a hooker before. She has a history of violence, which is on her record. She's got a history of self-harm, which again is on her record. She's got a history of all sorts of crazy, things that I just can't even list here. It's that many." And I suppose I was pretty lucky. I got a judge who turned around and he just, I think to a certain degree, he would have seen a lot of this shit before. And he just asked me, did I have any relatives that lived in Adelaide? And I had an uncle. So I went there. He said, right, you can stay there during your trial, probation or whatever it was. And yeah, so I lived on my uncle's floor in his lounge room for 3 months. Had to pay rent on my other house and yeah, pretty much just live a hollow shell existence. Go to work and go back to my uncle's. That's what I had to do. So I did it. I did the right thing. But what was interesting was that when all this happened, I had a court case coming up. So I had to go to court and blah, blah, blah. When I was in court, I actually, my lawyer was one of Stacey Carter's associates. I think her name was Jenny Ling. Very, very good. Very good. I tried stating my case, you know, from my point of view numerous times. No one listened. And thankfully for Jenny, I could never thank her enough. I really couldn't. She saw through the bullshit straight away. Within 3 days, she had the assault charges dropped and the intervention order was revoked. Within 3 days. That was amazing. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, oh my, wow. I even got, I suppose this is probably one of the other parts that it's just going to spin people out. So when the ruling was made, my ex-partner wasn't meant to be at the courthouse at all. She wasn't even meant to be there. Okay, but she showed up with her family. So when I come out of the courtroom, I was happy. I was smiling. I actually gave my cousin a high five. I'd been essentially on home D for 3 months, so I was a happy guy. Like an innocent, happy guy. I hadn't seen my daughter in this time. And you know, that was a signal to me that I could start proceedings to see my kids. So when I come out of the courtroom and I was all happy, I actually seen my ex-partner there, like, you know, she was down the other end of the hall. And then I heard a bunch of screaming. I was like, oh, wow, what's going on? The prosecutor, it was a female prosecutor, come up to me and said, look, she's just accused you of threatening her, making gestures and a whole heap of horrible stuff, right? But here's the other side. That right there could have landed me in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. When I've done nothing wrong again. So the prosecutor took me into a little room and she goes, we're going to watch the footage. And this is probably goes to show the intelligence of my ex-partner and her family. They didn't realise there's security cameras everywhere. Sorry, I'm sniffing so much. They didn't realise there's security cameras there. And then as the prosecutor watched the footage, she come back in. She was visibly pissed. She was pissed off. And I said, what's the matter? And she goes, I hate being fucking lied to. That's what she said. I was like, wow. I come out, I've seen her go over to my ex-partner and basically say, you're full of shit, we just watched the footage, don't lie like that. In so many words. My ex-partner, then, being the vacuous unit that she is, started screaming, saying, oh, do I have to go see the real police? Because if you know about where Holden Hill Police Station and Holden Hill courtrooms are, they're right next to each other. So she was going to go around to the police station and make a report, basically, and there was a police prosecutor right there. She's thick. So that had happened, and when that all got dropped, I got an apology from the police, which was worthless because I ended up, when I got the letter, I threw it out. It meant nothing. It really meant nothing to me. I thought, you guys are a pack of assholes and you're unprofessional. I don't see doctors acting like that. I'm sorry, but it's kind of like you got the same responsibility. You got a duty of care and you fucked up. But this isn't where it ends. So After that scenario, um, it would have been a week later. It would have only just been a week. I get a phone call from my ex-partner saying that there's a guy threatening to kill my daughter and her. Yep, WTF to that. So I, I suppose I was gobsmacked. I'm like, what's happening? Turns out she stole money from a brothel, $1,000. This guy said it, apparently. I don't even know if it's true. She could have just been making it up. So she said this guy was going to kill her. So whatever money I had, I think I had about $950 or something. Like, that was all I had. After everything had happened, that's all I had. So she come and picked me up. Oh no, that's right. Actually, I went and picked her up in my car because this person, this apparent threat, doesn't know, my automobile. So I went and picked her up, and she took me to a brothel, back streets and all the rest of it. I won't actually tell you where it is, but she took me there, and then she said, right, that's the place. So I got out of the car, took money up to the letterbox, put it in the letterbox, got back in the car, told her, call these guys, get their money and just leave us alone. And I did. And I felt like a bit, and she did, and I felt like a bit of a hero, like, it's kind of like protecting my daughter. And as much as, that's the thing with my ex, as much as, horrible things had happened, I suppose my biggest problem is I facilitated a lot of that behaviour. I should have walked away long ago, but I don't know, there's just something about her. I just couldn't let my ex destroy herself the way that she does. I loved her too much. Even though everything had happened, in my head, I'd say, no, that's not her. That's not her. That's just the imbalance talking, So we worked on things over a few months, and we got back together. Obviously, that was not a good idea. I wanted to have a family. My biological dad died when I was 10 weeks old. I have a stepfather, and he is my father, and I'm grateful for that. And that doesn't change, who's my father. But there's just always a part of me. I just wish I could have spoken to, my biological father. I just kind of wish. I wish my stepfather was my biological father, and we're all part of this family, And it was just, we didn't even have to worry about that. And it wasn't even something we worried about, but it's just something I just wanted to, I just wanted to have a family, mate. That was it. And having a daughter with her, I just couldn't picture having multiple kids to multiple women. I wasn't interested in doing that. And I thought if I worked with her and tried to help her get better, we could have a happy life. Because I'll tell you this much, as much as I'm saying negative things about her, there definitely were moments where she did. She was great. She made me feel good. She gave birth to my daughter, and I can never take that away from her, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. I truly am. But this is what leads me on to the next problem, and this only happened December 2016. So I live in a rural town, not too far from a big city, but it's rural. Out here we have a mental health care plan, rural mental health care plan. So we moved out here because her mother had died earlier on the year before, or earlier on in 2016. And we decided that my parents live down here, and it'll be good because it means we've got support. My parents are here. Her sisters and her brothers, they all have, 2 or 3 kids each. Hectic lives. They're always going. So we moved down here. When we got here, one of the first things we did was try and get my ex-partner involved in a mental health program. just, to try and, new start, new beginnings, and all the rest of it. Let's be good. And so it started off okay. We were here a little while, and she got pregnant. Um, and to be honest, I was happy. Her being pregnant was a good thing because, yeah, I love my kids. I do. I love kids. I think babies are just awesome little things. I mean, they don't lie. They don't know how to be mean. You know, the purest form of humanity is right there. Anyway, so she got pregnant. I started to notice a change straight away. I shouldn't say straight away, probably 2 months or, that 8 to 12 week period of a pregnancy, I started to notice a change in her behaviour. Started to get a bit more erratic. She tried to commit suicide while she was pregnant. Yeah, it was messed up, like I can count now 6 times. 6 times I've been there when she tried to kill herself. Now you ask yourself the question, would you just walk away from someone like that? I didn't. So I then proceeded to stick with the mental health care plan with her and try and work through it. I tried to get her to integrate with the people of the town. She wasn't too interested in doing that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely not perfect, but at the same time, I think I'm a pretty easygoing sort of. I just want people. I just wanted to be friends with people and not feel ostracised all the time. So after the birth of my son, it was a good time. Straight away, it was a good time. She tried breastfeeding this time as opposed to putting on the bottle straight away, which I was glad she even attempted. But that lasted 2 weeks, and he was on the bottle, and no big deal. As things started going forward, though, I could see the postnatal was starting to kick in again, and it was getting really, really bad. I mean, I probably should have acted then. Probably even earlier. I don't know. I think it got too bad before I even caught it. By the time I caught what was going on, I spoke to the mental health care team here. And what has to be understood is that everything I've ever said or done in this regard was about helping her. At no time have I ever tried to set her up to steal my kids off her. So she was referred to a place called the Helen Mayo House in Adelaide, which is a what do you call it? I think it's like a recovery place for new mums or people who've just given birth and dealing with postnatal, and it helps them cope, teaches them to cope. I'm pretty sure that's what the Helen Mayo House is about, because she was going to take my son with her, so that motherhood. It wasn't long after that how would you say it? She started to get aggressive again. She started to get aggressive with her own friends and mine. I mean, friends of hers that come from Adelaide to come see her. Within 2 days, she hated them. She was aggressive with my friends. She pretty much berated the people. Yeah, so actually midway through that last bit, my phone actually died, so I'll just quickly finish off. She even went to the point of making life awkward for me at work. I had to be home. If I was 5 minutes late, I was cheating on her. I was, doing all sorts of horrible stuff. Again, as time went on, she wasn't religious, as you can tell by what I'm saying. Her mother was Islamic, and she wasn't. Just before this all, you know, back in December of last year, 2016. Basically, we started talking about religion and things like that, and what our kids, you know, what ideas we had for our kids. And my viewpoint was that I wasn't too keen on my children being indoctrinated. I like the idea better of when they're 16, 17, 18, however old it is, when I can explain the theory of evolution and they can understand that, I think, yeah, then you can tell them about religion to, you know, let them make up, use the rational mind. 9 times out of 10, the rational mind would probably go with evolution. That's probably why it gets taught to kids at a young age. I don't know, but you know, that's my choice, or that, you know, that was what I wanted to do. My ex-partner didn't agree with what I had to say. Pretty much resulted in this massive argument again. Just her, just being who she is, flew off the handle. She immediately called up her sister. It was just like I'd denigrated the whole religion. It was crazy. So yeah, the next day I went to work, and then I come home. She was gone. My kids were gone. She called up her sister, and they'd come and got her. Whatever. So she's gone 400 kilometres away with my 2 kids. I didn't know until I come home from work. I messaged them. I messaged her sisters asking where are my kids. No response. So I did get a little bit nasty. Started name calling. Who wouldn't? Ask yourself, who wouldn't? And then I did the right thing. I called up. Yeah, so the phone died again. Anyway, so back to what I was saying, I did the right thing. I called up Relationships SA and scheduled my first mediation intake meeting, you know, whatever it is they call it. And so in December, the earliest chance they had was the 20th of January. Upon doing that as well, I also, the day that she took off with my kids, I actually called the mental health team up in Narracourt and told them what had happened and that she'd gone. They actually hung the phone up on me. Didn't even say anything, just said nah, and just hung up. Oh, like I'd done something horrible. Again. So yeah, I mean, sort of sucked. I went to Adelaide on the 20th of January. So I just thought, well, you know what, fuck it. I'll go to mediation, do that, and I'll get, you know, my visitation, or, you know, I can't even believe I'm saying it, like, I, the father, can only have visitation, you know, like, fucking ridiculous. So after I went to mediation, on the 24th of January, so it was over 1 month and 16 days it was from the moment she left. Yeah, I got a knock on the door. I know where this is going. Intervention order. So a month and a half after she left and 4 days after I'd gone to mediation, I got pretty much saddled with another intervention order. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked, like, wow, again, like, and I mean, at least this time I felt as though, especially the original attending officer, he actually understood. He did say to me, he goes, oh, something about this doesn't quite make sense, something, you know, but I have to serve you this and question you. So again, I was accused of assault. I was accused of assaulting my son, accused of assaulting my daughter, accused of credit card fraud, accused of, oh, you name it. you name it, I was in there. She didn't accuse me of rape this time, which I found, yeah, a bit interesting. So yeah, that intervention order got put on me. So immediately after, what had happened the first time, I actually, I went to the first, what was it, pre-trial conference or whatever, and I spoke to him while I was there. And I know I sound like I'm bashing on female law enforcement or something at the moment, but it's just my experience, so deal with it. A female prosecutor, was the one trying to string me up by my balls, so to speak. I had spoken to this prosecutor whilst in the pre-trial conference. I told them about her previous mental health problems, what had happened in the past. Even there was an affidavit by one of the local police officers that actually refuted one of her claims because he seen her that day because I called him because she was losing her shit. Wonderful. So the police had in their possession, back in January of 2017, they had in their possession that they knew she was a liar. She had been proven to lie numerous times. They had in their possession an affidavit from one of their fellow law enforcers. I don't know if it's because he's a guy, who knows. That totally contradicted my ex-partner's story. Sorry about using names, but I really don't give a fuck at this point. What else did you do? Yeah. So I'd given all this that I'm talking about here, I gave all this information, all of it. Every single thing you're hearing now, I told the prosecutor. And do you know what she told me? She told me that because my ex-partner, her statement from the original time she made the statement to 2 weeks later hadn't changed. That's what she told me. And based on that, they're going to prosecute me. Wow. Fucking wow. So we're talking about evidence up the wazoo, and I just didn't give a shit. They really didn't. So I was scared, to be honest. I was like, I think something bad's going to happen. So I went and got a lawyer. I spoke to her. I don't blame her, but she wanted me to sign the intervention order, but not admit guilt. Everyone just wanted me to sign it. And I just had to keep saying to them, you don't understand. The moment I sign that piece of paper, she just has to say, this is a law here in Australia. Right? I'm not making this up. This is law and this is how it works. If she puts an intervention order against you, all she has to do is say that you called on a private number threatening her. She's seen you driving past her house. It's anything. Anything. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if there's evidence or not. By law, the police will come and get you, and you're in what's called a breach of intervention. You're in breach of the intervention order. You go straight into lockup until the next available court date, which, if you're lucky enough, is literally, 1 week away or a few days away. So, with that out of the way, yeah. So I ended up firing my lawyer because she just wouldn't listen. She wouldn't accept my side of the story. I told her all this. She looked at me and said, you can tell me, did you or did you not? I just spent 4 hours telling her I didn't. It's a fucking disgrace. So I wasn't rude about it. I just said afterwards, look, I think I'm going to represent myself. I actually stayed for financial reasons, which was part of it too. But I just felt like my side of the story wasn't getting told well enough. So I started contacting the prosecutor again, telling them, my side of the story. And they kept offering me to sign the intervention order. They kept saying, so you're not willing You're not willing to sign it. I had to keep saying, well, no, she uses it as a weapon against me. It wasn't until the last pre-trial conference where my lawyer abdicated herself, or whatever they call it, and I had to go sit up on the front seat. And again, I mean, I think in these sort of cases, if you can coherently put a a discussion together that people can follow, well, you're probably better off telling your own story in court. Don't take my advice 100%, but for me, that's what worked. So I stood up there again, told them everything that I've just been saying again here, like about the past, things she's gone through. And it wasn't until I mentioned, I forget her name, I think it's Anne Norby or something. It wasn't until I mentioned her name and that she's the mental health practitioner down here, and that she had referred my ex-partner to this Helen Mayo house. Should have seen the look on their faces, because at this point too, this female prosecutor stood up in the pre-trial conference and said that there's no point her and I speaking on the phone because there's nothing I can say to change prosecution's mind. That's what she said in court. That was said. So I kept pretty much banging out whatever I could, whatever just come to my head, boom, it was out there. And then, yeah, it was actually kind of funny. The typist, the lady that, or whoever, it doesn't have to be a lady, I'm not sexist, but typically it's a lady. It was in there doing the dictation or whatever it is, they type real fast. And when I started talking about the mental health team down here, I actually looked at her and I seen her. She looked at me and she looked back at the judge like, oh, hang on, what the fuck? Interesting. So, I don't know if that was the tipping point or what, but straight away, the judge turned around and just sort of said to me, mate, have you got this evidence like handy? I kept saying to him, mate, it's on a record. It's there. Like, they looked up the old court case, right? And so on the court receipt, it says, for want of prosecution, right? That's basically what it says. It doesn't say on the court receipt from the first time, she's a liar, he is not. It doesn't say that. It just says for want of prosecution. This woman, it was unreal. This woman stands up and goes, that could mean anything. Well, in the context of what's happening and what had happened, it means a fucking lot, doesn't it? Like, you tell me. It's an absolute joke. At the end of this pre-trial conference, the judge actually ordered her to speak to me again. Couldn't believe it. On my way out, every security, oh, wait, you really need to speak to her. Well, no fucking shit. Like, it was an absolute disgrace. And I'm sorry if I sound sexist for saying this, but when I called up, because court's on the Friday, I couldn't speak to this individual until Monday. Well, guess what? Monday came, and it was now a male prosecutor. Within, I don't know what, 2 phone calls, he put the application in to have the case dismissed. 2 phone calls. Unreal. Absolutely unreal. I mean, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that, eventually they seen it my way. And, let's put aside everything from the first time, right? Let's put that aside. Let's look at what happened this time. 6 months. I haven't seen my kids for 6 months. I found out a few days ago that my son was taken in an ambulance because he has a heart condition. Well, my son was born in August of 2016. I've spent more time away from him than what I spent with him. my ex-partner's trying to tell me that she's got some new guy and my daughter's calling him daddy. Yeah. You can. And something else I noticed is that I'm innocent. Courts, found me innocent twice. With the amount of shit that got thrown at me, nothing stuck. Not a single thing. And I'm the one without my kids. There's nothing I can do. The system's designed that I got told it was going to cost me $10,000. I don't have $10,000 just to spend. I don't make massive amounts of money. I mean, as the system is, my ex-partner doesn't work. She receives benefits, and she receives free legal aid. It's a joke. And the saddest part is, right? This is a sad part for all you women out there. It's people like her that are literally ruining your cause. Literally. There's no equality in what's happened to me. There's been no justice. There's been no duty of care. I've been looked over. Yeah, I'm just expected to get over this. You wouldn't believe me. You wouldn't believe it how many people just tell me, get over it. Move on. Have another family. I don't want another family. I want my babies back. I went to the prenatal courses. I did all the night feeds. I did all that stuff. I went out and, I went to work. I would have stayed home and looked after the kids, and she could have gone and worked, but she just couldn't be bothered. Yeah, so, I mean, now, even after, like I said, being found innocent and the rest of it, people look at me and think, well, no, they didn't have enough evidence to prosecute you. It's a different. Sorry about I'm sorry about sniffing that. It's just I had to get this out and I'm a bit sick, so I was going to say it. Yeah, so what was it? The 29th of June 2017 at 10 a.m. I was found innocent. I've contacted men's rights and all that to try and see what I can do to, because one of the things I would like to do is explore the possibilities of false allegations and conspiring to make false allegations. I think we can all agree that if this was on the other foot and it was a mentally unstable man that conspired to take his kids from his wife while she's at work, Star Force, NATO, fucking whoever, they would have come and got that kid off me. Or the two children, I should say. Fucking horseshit. Absolute horseshit. So I'm here, alone, without my kids. Every morning, first thing that pops in my head. So I get a daily reminder. And then, there are people that, to my kids, the thing is, when it comes to children, the two most important people in a child's life is the mother and father. Right? Well, in this instance, it's not. In this instance, that whole family has done nothing but shit on me. In that instance, I was sent some pictures by a sister, and I just couldn't hold it in. There's pictures of people that aren't even related to my daughter and my son enjoying their company. And as a father, I wasn't allowed to. I'm still not. I'm so sorry about sniffing, but fucking horseshit. So what do I do now? What do I do now? Do I go rob a bank to pay for my court case to get my kids back from, a totally unjust situation? What do I just end it all? Because as we know, the suicide rate in Australia is extremely high, and I'd love to know the correlation between domestic violence cases like mine and the rate of suicide. Because I'm going to tell you straight up, I think you'll find this happens a lot more than you think. And that's not taking away from women's problems and inequality. This is just another one of society's problems we have to deal with. I think it's horseshit that my kids, just get taken from me without any cause. She's done the wrong thing and taken them under false pretenses, yet I'm the one that has to pay. And I've already had people tell me that they think I've done extremely well to keep myself centred and not go off the deep end and do anything stupid. Which, is cool. But then at the same time, like I said, I could see how some people would probably do silly things, harm themselves or maybe harm someone else, put under this type of stress. The only way I could really explain it to anyone, even people with kids don't understand until the kids have been taken away. But I did find one little anecdote. What I used to say was that a friend of mine, he was pretty cut after his partner, split with him, and she just didn't want to be with him. That was it. So he had no choice. It was done, and he was distraught. He felt like crap. But yeah, he didn't quite understand what it was like for me losing my kids. He didn't understand that. I'm sorry, but my kids mean more to me than what some girlfriend that hadn't been with that long either. But to see how upset he was when she left, right, and he had no choice, that was the thing that hurt the most. Well, that's what's happened to my kids. Exact same thing. Except I can guarantee that I love my kids. I straight up, I love them. The love that I have for my kids, I've never felt for another person. Sorry, I don't know if that's wrong or right, but it's just the way it is. I mean, I still loved my ex-partner, but for whatever reason, I think the love with kids is different, and I think it's probably a bit stronger. So anyway, I mean, that's my story. Like I said, after watching the Red Pill and all these ridiculous interviews, I just thought I had to say something. I don't think enough people are sort of talking about their experiences and what had happened. And this isn't something that I think legislature really... I'm not asking for legislature to change or whatever. It would be nice. I'm just asking for a fair go. For equality. If everything I explained to you today and the roles were reversed, do you think I'd have my kids if I was, the aggressive one and all the rest of it? I wouldn't. I wouldn't have got away with none of it. So, yeah, go watch the Red Pill. Go learn something. To all you feminists out there that keep banging on about this crap, just watch it. You morons. Don't be stupid. Just watch it. Like, there's nothing in there. Like, wow. Paul Elam's statements about Bash a Bitch Month. That is literally a word-for-word parody or something that was written by a feminist magazine, which was, you know, beat up your boyfriend and how fun it is to slap your boyfriend around. You know, guys like that just write shit like that because how fucking ridiculous is that? How fucking ridiculous. And like Andrew O'Keefe, mate, what a wanker. Like, he just literally, he picked that one thing out and wanted to stick with it. And he doesn't even know what the fuck he's talking about again. But yeah, so anyway, hope that helped a few people, and yeah, go watch Red Pill. Alright, bye.